everybody. I'm Vinnie Civitillo, and I want to welcome you alongside my co-hosts, Randy Stephens and Casey Skarecki, to another episode of Planet New Jersey. This show, for everybody out there that would like to learn a little bit more about some insurance, is sponsored by our awesome friends at NJM Insurance. So check them out. No mascots, no jingles, just all great service, right? With us today is George Veitengruber from Veitengruber Law. We're going to hear a little bit from him, but first, just say hi, let the audience hear your voice.
Hi, audience, hear my voice.
There you go. Some people only listen to this. You know, we do put them up on YouTube. I recommend the YouTube version because you get to see these smiling faces. Hey. And a lot of times we forget that there are people that can't see us and we'll hold stuff up and totally not, call it out. But anyway, Casey, why don't you kick us off with our icebreaker of the day?
All right, so we have an icebreaker just to so you feel a little more relaxed, George. Because so here we go. Now, all right, you live in Monmouth County, right? You're in Wall Township, George?
My office is in Wall. I grew up in Howell.
Okay. So I don't know if it's just an Asbury Park thing or if it's just starting to be peppered around, but how do you feel about dogs outside when you're having dinners? Like a whole thing in the paper about people chit-chatting about dogs being outside when you're having your drink at, the Wonder Bar, wherever, or you're out to dinner. So I had to leave it open. Any thoughts?
So we're talking about like dogs on the boardwalk, dogs out and about? Are they
just dogs
leashed?
at restaurants, really. Like people bring their
Oh,
dogs.
bringing your dog to the restaurant.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm not as big of a fan of that, and that doesn't make me anti-K-Night. Look at that weird coin term of the day.
Sure.
I have two dogs. I have a Greyhound Rescue, right? And I've got this little 20-pound Cavapoo. He would probably be great in a restaurant, but he's going to lay down and somebody's going to trip over him, and then there's a lawsuit, and I can't be the lawyer on that because I was a witness. So that's terrible for me. Restaurants that have outdoor areas that have a little bit of a venue for dogs and they actually like promote that, people have to know what they're walking into. Other restaurants where they just insist on bringing their little purse dog, it's a little bit presumptuous, and you better have the right dog for the queue. Where I actually live now is Bordentown, so I'm on the other side of the state because the real estate was cheaper and nicer at the time. So happy to do it. But they set up outdoor tables right on the sidewalk. Mm-hmm. I have no problem plowing my dog right through that because it's my sidewalk when it's not restaurant hours. But I wouldn't want to interfere with anybody's food. My dog is a great busser, by the way. His neck is at table height, so he clears those tables for people in a heartbeat.
Casey, were you talking more about like the ladder where, people like the restaurant designates like this is an outdoor place, bring your dog? Well, or are you talking about like, because I have never been to a restaurant where somebody brought their dog into the restaurant. Maybe like you said, one of those purse dog kind of things, but.
Oh no, all the time. Are you kidding? So my mom, so I have a pug, and my mom had her sister pug. So my mom worked she's a receptionist. So you go to the doctor's office and you got the little window, and there she'd be sitting in her chair and her dog baby would be sitting in the next chair, right? So she brought her dog everywhere. This is not a service dog. This is just a little pug. But there was nowhere she wasn't going anywhere with the dog. So people will always bring their dogs, especially, where I live. If it's designated dog area or not.
It's Asbury, so yeah.
Like
yeah, that's fair.
I would never even consider it. My dog is such an I don't think I could bring her anywhere. But
Home Depot.
No, I would not bring my dog either. But people, I've been to Yappy Hour, which is fun. That's obviously best for dogs. Right, but that's fun. But like Kim Marie's is a place down in Asbury, and they have a little dog menu, which is cute. But when you're sitting there and you're having your cocktail or whatever, and you got to hold your dog sees another dog, and then the dog darts off or what have you. Or they don't.
Like George said, I think if you know what you're getting yourself into, like if the restaurant is themed that way and they have like their special night and you walk into that, fine. You did that to yourself. Any other time, I would say off limits. Like absolutely not.
That's what I'm
out of here with that.
That's where I'm
then
at.
I'm with you.
I have no problem calling myself an anti-K-Night. That's fine.
You heard it here first.
Yeah.
Anti-K-Night. No, the pro-K-Night people calling us. No, but it's just that was kind of like the highlight news. People have very strong opinions. I'm always kind of interested in what people have very strong opinions on, and this is one that had like, one of those bazillion comments on it.
Well, that's it.
People
Because
were very passionate
fur
about
kids
it.
are our children in some cases, right? The four-leggers have been elevated in their status, especially the dogs. Fur babies, man. It's for real.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Fur baby grandparents,
right?
absolutely.
They ain't getting.
I'm not even totally wild about it when people bring their actual babies.
Yeah, true story.
I mean, it depends how behaved people can be, but I don't know. And again, it also depends on what restaurant you're going to. Like, if I'm sitting down in McDonald's, I don't care what's going on around me. Like, there can be a whole parade marching by me, and in half the time there is. But like if I'm at like a real restaurant,
I'm sitting at Stella at Friday night at 8, eating my steak, and the dog next to me is eyeing it. I mean, I might be a little edgy about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It will definitely affect the tip, George. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh man.
Sorry, I already tipped your dog with a treat.
Some death
you
stares.
Don't get one.
Get your own steak.
Oh, man. Well, Vinny, you said that you saw a food truck. It was a dog food truck, right?
I totally didn't know what I was getting myself into there either. Like, there were paws all over the truck, but like I just thought that was like a gimmick.
Dog? Maybe they're serving dogs.
Yeah, it was okay. So it was a cookie truck, and I'm like, we were at a festival, and where there's like food trucks everywhere, and I was like, oh, I could go for a cookie. So I get in line and I get to the end of the thing. And yes, I did notice that everybody in line had a dog, but like, I didn't put 2 and 2 together. So I get to the end of the line and, like there's treats, that's like all they have on the menu. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I think I made a mistake
though,
here.
Vinny?
I don't know. You'd have to ask my dog. I did take one home for her because I was like, I'm not waiting in this whole line for nothing.
Go. Right.
I might have even got one even if I didn't own a dog at that point.
Our farmer's market has a pretty good dog treat person, and she makes these pumpkin peanut butter donuts for the dogs. Put them in the fridge. No shame, right?
Delicious.
Put them in the fridge because you want to make sure that they don't spoil. My wife may have grabbed one before she realized it was a dog treat. It is human grade, and she's like, it needed a little sugar, but otherwise, she was a bite into it before she realized it was not for her.
I love it.
If Chantel ever slipped up and that happened to me, she better be on full alert because I'm paying her back somehow.
That would just be the start of an awful prank war.
I'm just saying, if you see suspect donuts that don't have a sign in the fridge, I sent them. We'll see who's stealing food.
A note to people that make donuts out there, though. Pumpkin peanut butter, that actually does sound like a decent combination.
I'm saying
that sounds good, right?
Toss a little sugar in there. I'll give it a shot.
We're on it.
Because I do love donuts. Although, don't put your bacon on my donuts. Like, I cannot get down with the bacon maple donut. Like, that's just too.
I know this wasn't the icebreaker, but you're heading towards that territory. Is
in case I was just about to say that, note that one down.
So I once made maple bacon ice cream, and legit homemade maple bacon ice cream, and it was a crazy thing to do 20-something years ago when I was still in the early days of law. But my wife, just for Father's Day, gave me an ice cream maker, and she brought me maple bacon ice cream in bed that she made as an homage to the recipe from 20 years ago. And I swear she made it better than I did. So you're just like, I think I was onto something, and I should have done it. I could have had an honest career instead of this law thing.
You could be swimming in maple bacon.
I'm just saying, it's out there.
I love it. Casey, I think you're up to talk about some getting to know you kind of questions. So let's get that. Let's get to the maple bacon alternative of Veitengruber.
Let's get to the maple bacon of you, George. What makes you go? So, George, I got to ask you: do you know Judge Raymond Lyons
personally?
Wait, Judge Lyons from Camden? From a long time ago?
Yeah,
I do.
Yeah, he's retired. Yeah, he's just a close family friend. So
I was gonna say this is the most
I was
specific getting
like,
to know you question I've ever heard on
know
the
Judge
show.
Lyons. I was in front of him quite a bit back in the day.
Yeah, he's just a close family friend, and I was looking it up, and I was like, I wonder if he knows Judge
I do,
Lyons.
and what
So
I
there you
find
go. I
really
like that
crazy
small world.
now is that I've hit a certain age where all of a sudden I have friends on the bench, and you're like, that's really strange. And I appeared several years ago. I appeared in family law to do a name change for one of my minor clients, and the judge was my childhood like grammar school classmate, soccer teammate, and team rival. And as soon as I walked in, I hadn't seen him in 25, 30 years. And as soon as I walked in, he's like, that's the guy. There he is. That's who I was telling you about. He's talking to the bailiff about all these crazy stories when we were kids. Because again, kid of the 80s and 90s, somewhere I have a breakdancing, like day glow in the hair, like punk rocker rapper thing of that judge. And you're just like, 3 of the 4 of us in that picture wound up becoming attorneys, and the other guy is a teacher.
Wow.
So you're like, we were all troublemakers back then, I guess.
Holy, all right, so that gets right into so it's a lot in that picture. Punk rock, rapper, Dayglow. So 80s, 90s, we were chit-chatting about wrestlers a little bit. I can tell you, like, so you grew up, you were watching this
it was
WWF,
WWF
right?
back then.
Or was WWF?
Yep.
I watched
Gorgeous ladies of
Glow,
wrestling.
of course.
How could we not?
Oh,
So who are you? Give me your top 3 wrestlers.
wait, before
back in
he
the
does
day.
that, can I just say like how mad I am at
Glow
Netflix
was
for
great.
canceling Glow? Like I know you're talking about real Glow, but like the Glow show on Netflix that told the story
It
of
was a
that.
great
show, too.
story. It
Yeah.
was awesome nostalgia and popcorn. I watched the entire series. I binged it, so I'm with you. I'm Team Glow.
Yeah.
Me too.
All right, so top 3 wrestlers.
This is interesting.
Like, so really, Andre the Giant, right?
Of course.
Because A, he was a beast, and B, he was amazing as Fezzik in Princess Bride. Who could ever forget that?
Of course.
George the Animal Steel, because A, he was such a convincing mentally deranged wrestler, but in real life, he was a high school principal. Yeah.
Oh, really?
How's that for absolutely crazy?
That's
and then for the third choice, it's tough. It really is. It's either Randy Macho Man Savage or Hulk Hogan. Right? It's totally rivals, but I mean, I go back to WrestleMania 1. So like Hulk was all the thing. The very patriotic, I am a real American, fight for the rights of every man.
Rick Derringer.
Right? Holy cow, I could just start patriotizing the lyrics, notwithstanding anything he's done recently. You know, that makes it tricky.
Yeah, that's there. Well, it's great because there's such a rivalry. Of course, there was the Iron Sheik.
Iron Sheik is hilarious. Have you ever like heard him like in real life? In the last, I know he passed away pretty recently, I want to say, but they did a whole documentary on him, and he is one of the funniest people I've ever.
I just remember the other
life.
guy who wore the patriotic hat all the time. It was Rick. Is it Rick Springfield? No, that's the singer, but it's Ric Flair.
Not Ric Flair.
No, it wasn't Ric Flair. The beautiful blonde locks. Oh no, forget it. It's over. I can't remember his name, but I was thinking Bobby the Brain Heenan, and then the Russian wrestling team, because we had such a fervor back then about like the Russians versus Americans. The Volkovs.
Nikolai Volkov.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
You know, I don't get to tell this story often, but when we talk about things that inspire us and talk about like things that have set us on a path, I have a degree in multimedia communication. Like I am an amazing person in Photoshop. And the reason for that, like the thing that got me really into Photoshop and photographic fakery was that Macho Man Randy Savage and Ric Flair had this feud going into WrestleMania 8, where they used the WWF magazine to share photos of Ric Flair with Macho Man's wife, Miss Elizabeth, like in intimate settings. And then like it sparked this whole jealousy. And then like the next month they're showing us the real photos that were doctored by Ric Flair. And I was like, that is amazing. Like, first of all, that you could just use photographs to like drive somebody over the edge and talk smack like that.
This was 30 years ago. Then that's the more interesting thing too. It's like 30 years ago.
Yeah. And here I am today.
And what was
Gene
it
Okerlund?
What was the name of
Gene Okerlund?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mean Gene. He was so good.
It's funny. I haven't watched wrestling in the longest time, but I will be fans of like that period when I was a kid until
crystallizes in your brain. And that's it. Certain moments always crystallize.
Did you see the Iron Claw that came out last year?
Yeah. Was, I didn't watch it yet, but it's on that list of I'll get to it eventually. I heard it was good. It was sad though, right? Like intensely.
Very sad. Very sad. The Von Erichs, it was what's his name in real life?
The guy on the bear.
Ricky Stenicki. Yeah. High School Musical. Zac Efron plays the lead.
Oh yes. Yes, I heard it was so sad.
Yeah, it's so sad. And it's crazy because you watch that story and it's about this group of like 6 brothers and all but I don't want to tell you how many of them survive, but like they all drop like flies. Like they die. One of them at like 6 years old, and you watch it and you're like, this is crazy. They're just making this up. And then you Google it, and sure enough, not only did all of them die, but like they left a brother out that died just because
this is too much death.
No, people are not going to believe this.
This is too much. We're not going to be able to follow this story. Yep.
Yeah. And then, they're telling us about the Texas Tornado, who was a WWF wrestler when I was young, and he only had 1 foot the whole time he was doing it. And I didn't know that. Like that's insane. Like, how do you do this on 1 foot?
It makes absolutely no sense how anybody could do it with that much talent, except the choreography and the athletic skill in the first place.
And to not let on, like me watching had no idea that this man had 1 foot. I mean, just the skill, and I mean, it led to his ultimate death. Like, he got hooked on painkillers and everything, but like just how impressive.
Spoiler alert.
I know. And that's not the end of the movie. As crazy as that sounds. Like, yeah. Anyway. Randy.
Well, unfortunate for all of our viewers who didn't get a chance to catch any of the Macho Man Randy Savage impersonations we had going on before the show in the green room, but
I'll do it for you any day. Ooh, yeah.
Well, George, we're going to get into we're going to get into some more questions just about you. Go ahead, Vin. I see you still got. I was
just going to ask if Casey could hold up the photo, because this is what got us on this. Casey has a costume that she wears that looks identical to Macho Man Randy Savage.
It's not like identical. It's
identical.
I wear, so.
Like, if he didn't wear that exact outfit, I'll be shocked.
Sorry for the audio listeners.
Yes.
This is last week. I wore the costume for my gig at Stone Pony. We were the inside.
That might as well be a photo of Randy Savage.
Almost Queen. Country. It's apparently wrestler superhero country outfit. Much like
George,
your punker.
I'm signing up for that cosplay. That's all I'm saying.
Casey, you are the cream that rises to the top.
Yes, I'm quoting that.
George, let me stop these guys and take us into some of your professional journey, because
we're
going to go on a tangent.
When are we going to get another opportunity? That's all I'm saying.
That's why this is a twofer.
So I was digging into a little bit of just history of from your bio and Veitengruber Law, and I mean, from debt resolution in your younger years in law, right, to helping financially distressed individuals, as you were talking about before we kind of hit the live button here. Like, just tell me about that journey, like, and what that process was like for you, and how you ended up to what you're doing today.
Thank you for the question. I spent 5 years working for a collection firm in Monmouth County because this crazy thing happened when I came out of law school, which we seem to always have a cycle of. There were too many lawyers, not enough jobs. So you send out 200 resumes and desperately beg for a job. And my first boss, I walked into the interview, and the magic of nepotism and networking immediately took hold, because he said, "Hey, you went to CBA? I went to CBA. I'm class of 88. What year were you?" And I'm like, 91. And he said, "You want the job?" And I was like, oh, after 5 months of sweating for everything to walk into that, you're like, sure. And then I said,
Wow.
I love court. I want to be in court. And he said, great. I hate that. It's all yours. So I spent 5 years spending 100 days a year in court, negotiating, settling cases, like learning how to argue, learning how to advocate. And then today is a magical anniversary. I'm not kidding. 15 years ago today, I walked into my boss's office and he said, hey, the economy's terrible. We've taken a turn. You're the highest paid guy here that's not an owner. Good luck to you. And I got fired. I got
Wow.
fired
no.
15 years ago
That's
today.
awful.
I did.
No
But here's the
way.
great thing about that, right? It was the best gift they could have ever given me because I went home, and this kind of goes into the story of what I do now, right? I went home and I told my wife, hey, I got fired today. And she turned white and she said, oh my God, what are we going to do? We have a mortgage to pay. We have car payments to make. We have student loans. We have bills. And I said, nothing. We're fine. And she was like, what did you just say to me? And I said, we're fine. And she said, I don't understand. And I'm like, you're working. You can pay the mortgage. Unemployment's going to pay the other bills. We're okay. And I said, we're going to take the next 6 months off and I'm going to go interview for my dream job or I'm going to make my dream job. And I
Wow.
interviewed for a job that I'm so thankful I didn't get. I made it through 4 rounds of interviews. I was going to be the national litigation coordinator for a firm where I was going to oversee all of the lawsuits for all of their attorneys across the continental US. And they loved me.
Wow.
And then it got to the fourth interview and they still loved me. And then the recruiter said, hey, we're not hiring anybody from this batch. And I was like, okay, what happened? What did I miss? And they're like, we think we're going to need class action experience. And I was like, that wasn't in the job description. What? And they're like, we just have a feeling. The reason that they needed class action experience is I was going to be representing one of the lenders that ultimately got caught in that foreclosure crisis of 2008 through
Wow.
12. And I would have been not only defending ourselves in front of federal courts, but I would have been foreclosing on people over and over and over again. So when I
Wow.
didn't get that job, I spent the next 4 months with a business coach who walked me through every step of how to start your own business. Because the one thing that's not taught in school very well is how to be an entrepreneur and how to get yourself to the point where you know what it costs every month to carry your debt, to market your business, to be out there, pay your bills, and then grow and thrive. So for 4 months, I walked through every step of that process, put out my shingle. And in my first month of a lawyer with my cute little Apple Mac and my scanner and my printer in a shared office space where I'm not kidding, the guy who was lending me space was the former owner of the Saint in Asbury, who happens to be an attorney,
No
right?
way.
And I'm renting this one office room for $250 a month. In my first month as an attorney, I made $400. And I was like, oh my God, if I continue on this track, I'm going to be out of business in 2 months. And then the next month, these guys, these amazing attorneys said, hey, we have 100 years of experience in this shared space. Take any case that walks in the door. We promise we won't let you fail. What an amazing gift, right? So the next month, I take a case, bridal shop closing. And if you were anywhere around Monmouth County in 2010, there was a bridal shop that closed in Freehold. And my clients were these two extras from Sopranos, like sketchy guy with funky eyebrows that was Italian and this very tall, silent, stocky Russian. And they said, we ran out of money and the bridal shops won't release the dresses. And the landlord's evicting us on Friday. What do we do? And I said, get the dresses out because the landlord can take them as chattel and just liquidate them. So the next day they start removing it from the shop, only to not have told their office manager about it. So the GM gets on the phone and she starts calling all the brides and saying, I don't know what's going on, but you better come down and get your dress because it looks like it's moving out of the showroom. There was almost a riot in Freehold. I wound up helping 150 brides because my clients knew they made a mistake. They didn't want to go to jail. So I helped 150 brides coordinate getting their dresses from New York bridal shops and making sure that the payments came through. They couldn't stay in the space anymore, but they could finish servicing the brides. But front page news of the Asbury Park Press a few times, Channel 11 lead story, all of this crazy crap. It was terrible. And that was my first big break.
Was that just like a bittersweet moment, like, knowing that, this is really taking off and it's working, but also having to deal with like 150
bridezillas
like
that, I kid you not, here we are. These guys just told me, take any case you want. And now I have women showing up to my office and trying on their wedding dress in an attorney conference room. And they're like, how's it look? And I'm like, it looks pretty good. I can't do alterations. But there it was, is that when you're early in your career, the goal is take anything to survive until you can find your path. And then my path became very clear. All of that work I did for the first 5 years was pressure on people. It was going after people that owed money, but were vulnerable. And I knew every trick in a book because that's what my bosses had taught me. So I flipped. And now I was doing bankruptcy to protect the very people that I used to chase down.
Wow.
And then because the market had crashed, the real estate market was in like turmoil. Then I started doing loan modifications and foreclosure defense to keep people in their houses and help them get a reset. And then the people that I couldn't help, I learned how to do real estate and short sales. So at least they could sell with dignity and their own time. And that whole message became about controlling your own destiny. Something bad happened in your life, something went down, but one moment shouldn't define where you're going to be. So if you figured out how to recover, but you have this pressure and this weight that's stopping you from actually recovering, there's laws that might protect you. So why wouldn't you take advantage of a bankruptcy? Why wouldn't you try to avail yourself of a loan mod that could recapitalize the debt so you could start paying your mortgage again? And 15 years later, I have a team of 11. I've got 3 offices, and I help 450 clients a year protect themselves, take advantage of their rights to call a do-over, call a reset, and empower them to say, one bad decision or one tragedy in my life isn't going to stop me from being able to try again.
And George, how many years in total have you been in law? And you probably said it or alluded to it, but just for clarification, how many
20
years
as an attorney and 15 on my own.
Wow. And you kind of just said something that like a perfect segue, right? It's not often, and we talked about this pre-show, but it's not often you think of attorneys and think of them with kind of like a philanthropic kind of attitude and heart. But just reading up on some of the things that you've done, like connected with the Ark of Mercer and like Trenton Area Soup Kitchen and all that sort of stuff, like, is there a particular reason or a route that steered you kind of in this direction?
My parole officer said it would be good if I did things. I
was gonna say, before the show, there was such a reminder to me of Saul Goodman.
So, so a little background, right? My mother was the mayor of Howell back when I was a kid. So I started canvassing and door knocking when she ran for Board of Ed, and I was 7 or 8 years old. We always lived a comfortable middle to upper middle class life, like never rich, but never wanting of anything. And giving back and helping people in need was something that my parents drummed into me when I was a little kid. And that meant that I always was involved with service projects, and I was always involved with community undertakings. So when I went to college, I was actually the statewide leader for a community service group called Circle K. I had 38 college campuses and 1,000 college kids that served under me. And we did a lot with the Red Cross that year. But those like food pantry projects and reading to children and outreach programs, donating shoes, all of those things, it was normal. And the coolest thing that I get to do as a lawyer is I have taken something that I believe in, which is giving back and charity and helping people less fortunate. And I've turned it into my actual profession. because the people that need me, not all of the people, but half of my clients that need me, something went bad. And it doesn't mean that they're bad people. It doesn't mean that it's like there's anything that they've themselves, in fact, done. It's circumstances beyond their control. And I've found a way to help them unlock momentum again. And somehow I've become an attorney that gets paid to help people. And that feeds my soul professionally and personally.
That's amazing.
And George, you said something that is powerful, because when you make a mistake, or it's not even a mistake, if things happen in your life that are just happen, and you are looking at bankruptcy or foreclosure, it is difficult. It does not make you a bad person. You said that, and I think that's profound, because I feel like when you find, if you have family, I mean, I've certainly had family that has gone through challenging situations like this, and you give yourself such a hard time, that understanding that it's okay.
I'm such a failure. I'm such an F up, right? Oh my God, nobody will ever talk to me. Oh my God, this is terrible. When we think of bankruptcy, right? And I definitely want to get off that soapbox, because people are like, oh, bankruptcy, forward. They're just skipping this conversation. But when you think of bankruptcy in the 50s or 60s, oh my God, nobody ever talked about it. And then in the 80s, it was like, well, your uncle who was an alcoholic had to do it. And then when I started practicing it, I said, listen, how long do you think a bankruptcy actually affects you? And they're like, oh my God, your entire life. And I was like, what if I told you you can buy a house 2 years after you filed bankruptcy? And they're like, you're lying. And I'm like, no, here's the rules. Here's the guidelines. I can get you qualified for a house in 2 years. How long do you think you'll be without a credit card? And they're like, I don't know, forever. Our system is rigged. It's based on credit cards and good utilization. So the day after your bankruptcy is discharged, you get another credit card. And you're like, no, you're lying. And I'm like, on day one, you walk into a bank and you get a secured credit card, or you walk into your credit union and get one. And what do you put on it? Your Netflix, your Hulu, your Amazon Prime. And then you pay it off every month. But if you do that step for 6 months, your score's up 100 points. Why do you do this? Because the people that get the benefits are the people running at 750 or above. Who's to tell you you can't be at 750 or above? Who's to tell you you can't buy a house just because you married the wrong guy or girl, or your spouse died, or your kid got really sick and you didn't have insurance in place, so you have $1 million medical bill? If I could tell you you could be past that incident and your life would be almost back to normal in 4 months and would be fully back to normal in 2 years, that you could buy a house if you wanted to and dreamed of it, why are you afraid of that? Just because big bank, big business who control the media dollars made you think it was the worst thing in the world you could ever do? That's dumb.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Then I got one more before I toss it to you. Is that all right?
Are you kidding me? He answered all the questions that I had written in your first question. So you go ahead, and then I'll come up with something else.
So, I mean, and I just want to mention, we talked about this pre-show, and like trust, wills, and estates, George, right? I was not even, I mean, I've heard of them, obviously, of course, as a functioning adult to some degree, but I lost my grandfather about a year ago, and I learned from that experience to, get a lot of that stuff in place with my grandmother who was still remaining. So it was my first kind of go around with the trust, the wills, estate planning, and all that sort of stuff. If there's any, and hopefully this isn't considered a consultation, but if there's any kind of point or two that you'd want to just make to our audience about why that's important, or even how it may relate to New Jersey and specifically, like what would you say about that to kind of open those conversations for us to have those courageous conversations?
So here's the other misconceived notion. And as you see, I deal with these touchy-feely areas of law where people are a little intimidated by them, mostly because they get in their own way, right? There's an awesome book on Amazon for $10 called I'm Dead, Now What? And it's a journal. It's a journal that asks all the questions that you'd never think of. So if you really are type A and meticulous, you could write out every piece of what you want your funeral to be. I'm not suggesting that, right? But I'll tell you what. So I'm not a hypocrite here. Everybody in this room, obviously, and everybody listening to this should have a will in place. Why? Because that's the way you control your own outcome. And if you don't control your own outcome, the state has its own plan. And the state's plan says, hey, this is how the assets get divided. X is going to go to your wife. X could go to your children. I don't have a wife. I have an ex-wife and I have stepchildren. Oh, okay, that gets more complicated. Oh, well, one of my stepchildren died and they have 3 children. That gets even more complicated. If you don't make a plan, there will be people that will inherit your money because you didn't make a plan that you might not want to have inherited it. So 6 years ago, I had bariatric surgery. And the day before bariatric surgery, as an attorney that does these things for a living, I said, oh, damn, I don't have my own will. And there is a 0.001% chance of dying from that surgery. So I shouldn't take that for granted. So there I was typing away on my last day of work before being out for a month to recover from the surgery. And I put my own will together. I put my own powers of attorney together. I walked into my notary's office, my paralegal next door, and she's like, what am I notarizing? And I said, my will. And she's like, ooh, dark, right? But I put together a plan because here's what happens. My wife trusts me. Thank God for that. But I pay the bills. I know where the bank accounts are. I know where the life insurance is. I know where the retirement assets are. I'm the guy who put us in touch with the accountant. If you leave behind a spouse and you don't have something that says, here's where the bodies are buried and here's who you need to talk to for the money, they are hopelessly lost. And you're starting them at a disservice. So just putting together a document that says, A, here's where everything goes. B, here's who can help you fix it and recover it all. How easy is that? And I'll tell you, the thing that opened up my dialogue the most about this was 4 years ago. We had this little thing called COVID where it shut down the entire world, right? And in the early days of COVID, nobody knew what to do. It was very, very confusing. It was a challenging time. I became a craft beer connoisseur and I grew my hair. So my hair made it down to here and I had a goatee and a mustache for the first time in my life because that was the only thing I could control during COVID. At the end of March in 2020, right after we shut down, I did a real estate closing with the masks and all the things and wiping down all the stuff. And 2 weeks later, that guy who just bought his first house, married, 3 kids, started developing symptoms. Don't go to the hospital. Don't go to the hospital. We can't go to the hospital. Waits till the very last second, goes to the hospital, put on a vent, didn't recover. He's dead a month after he bought his first house, leaving behind 3 children and a wife in a $500,000 house. And the scary part is he looked like me. I'm not the healthiest guy, but I'm not unhealthy. No comorbidities, no symptoms, no problems. 30-something, dropped dead a month after buying his first house. And do you know what I then go to all my clients and say? Hey, do you have a will? And they're like, why do you want to talk about that? And I'm like, because we're going to be signing documents anyway. Do you want to sit down and actually do this?
Right.
Do you have life insurance? Well, why do I need life insurance? You're like, a $250,000 policy that I pay $30 a month for covered my house because I wanted to make sure if I was gone that my family didn't have struggles because I was no longer there as an income earner. They at least had a house and then Social Security kicks in and helps with survivor benefits and they could struggle on without me. And that's not a story for somebody in their 70s or 80s that goes, well, shit, I better turn around and do a will. It's somebody in their 30s or 40s because, not to be dark, we don't know when our time is. And oh my God, 4 years ago, did it magnify that nobody knows where their time is. And to have such simple documents in place, it's one of the cheapest things attorneys do, right? And if you don't want to use an attorney, as Vinnie said at the beginning of this, BIA might have a benefit for this. And LegalZoom has a really...
I was about to clarify. I was like, I didn't say don't use an attorney.
And he didn't. And here's the point. I won't denigrate LegalZoom and I won't denigrate... there's a... Oh man, I can't even think of the name of it right now. But there's a consumer company that you pay $20 a month and they give you free access to a cheap will.
Yeah.
Those things are out there and you can do it. If you want to see a human being knee to knee live in person so you can really get your thoughts on paper properly, that's why we charge a little bit more than those very cheap things that you can do online, because we make sure they're compliant and we make sure your wishes are met. And we make sure that the government plan isn't the primary plan. It's a scary conversation until you take 5 minutes and go, what do you really care about? I care about my kids. I care about my grandkids. I want to leave a legacy. This is what I've got. How do I make that work? And then the other scary one, because, we'll stay down the dark path for one more minute. So my mother, the former mayor, she actually passed away from COVID. She was actually one of Governor Murphy's COVID spotlights during all of that mess. My mother and father were in the hospital with COVID at the same time because they shared everything for 55 years. My mother's POA was my father. My father's POA was my mother. My mother is on a vent. My father is suffering from a little bit of oxygen deprivation because his pulse ox went down to 89. So who makes the decision if you don't have a decision maker competent enough to make it? Do you know how easy it is to do a power of attorney and say, hey, my wife is my backup, but in the event my wife's not available, my best friend is the backup to my wife? And now somebody can make the decision. My parents have 2 kids as attorneys, and they didn't have that document because they told us, oh, yeah, we got that taken care of. I've known the family attorney for 50 years. I sat in his office when I thought I wanted to go into law, and he said, Georgie, your parents won a will at a PBA dinner dance, but they didn't pay to do the powers of attorney. The will was free. The POAs would have cost them another $500. They cheaped out. And you're like, Mom, Dad, really? Really? So needless to say, my dad now has all those documents in place. And I advocate for everybody by saying, like, surprise death and the need for these documents has impacted me professionally and personally. And nobody should leave unprepared that these things, it's a 30-minute exercise of feeling uncomfortable, thinking about your own mortality. But I got a tip for everybody here. We're all gonna die. I'm sorry. It's going to happen. Spoiler alert.
It's a spoiler.
Spoiler alert.
Okay.
It's going to happen. I watched Highlander. I don't think I'm going to be the last guy. Thank you.
Great movie, though.
I wouldn't call it great.
I would call it good.
I
would call it good. And I believe there was a wrestling scene in it.
Entertaining.
I think there was a Hulk Hogan wrestling scene in it. Oh, yeah.
I don't even remember that.
I have to go back and watch it this weekend.
I don't know, but that stuff's back. I have to go back.
She's like, I don't know about that one. You might be confusing that with No Holds Barred. Yeah, so all of my questions got answered. I will ask a weird one though. You mentioned how day one you're answering 150 calls from Bridezillas. Has there ever been anything that surprised you in your career? Anything that, crazy that just came across your desk?
So define crazy. Every day is crazy.
Something that surprised you, like something that made you go, wow.
So here's what I like to say. And I mean, this is a message for young people just entering whatever career they're in. Mine happens to be law, right? If I could talk to the guy 15-year younger me, I would say there's no reason to be afraid of any of it. You've got to be willing to try. And the stuff I did 15 years ago, because I just didn't know any better, was so low in terms of like pressure, pain point, like lunacy. And I will tell you now, because I'm so comfortable with doing things on the fringe and pressing the envelope on what's rational, I'll jump out of a plane without a parachute and I will believe that I'll land safely. And that comes down to, right, the spirit of foreclosure and things about to be lost. people don't understand. If there's a sheriff sale scheduled, it's not game over. It's not a death sentence. It's just very, very close to the end. So I learned that you could run down to the sheriff's office the morning of the sheriff sale and you could get it adjourned. That's how we used to do it 10 years ago. Well, now what I've learned is I can file a bankruptcy 20 minutes before a sheriff sale for a client I just met that day, and the sale will get adjourned. But a few years ago, I took it to the extreme and I said, this happened to one of my clients, right? So she lost her house to a sheriff sale. She wasn't paying attention. She didn't even know it was happening because it was during COVID and sales had been on a moratorium for so long. She happened to be the first active sales back on the list. And the night of that sale, terrible,
Imagine
right?
that luck.
So the night after that sale, a guy knocks on her door and says, I own this house now. When are you getting out? Right? And he said it to her 16-year-old son, not even her. So she walks into my office the next day and I say, do you want to know the worst part about that guy showing up last night for him? And she's like, no, what? And I'm like, he came to your house 10 days too early. And she's like, I don't understand. And I'm like, can you save this house? She owed 400,000. She couldn't save this house, but the house was worth 650. And I said, are you prepared to move in 60 days? And she's like, if I have to. And I said, I'm going to put you on the phone with a realtor right now. Put her on the phone with a realtor. And I said, Deb, you have 60 days to close on this house, not get a contract, close. If you can't do it, we do all this work for nothing. No one gets paid. It's lost effort. Can you do it? And she said, yeah, I got this. I had a contract. I had 5 contracts by the next Wednesday. And not only did we close, but she walked out with $150,000 in her pocket. The house was lost. It was over.
Fantastic.
I couldn't have done that 15 years ago. And all it became was just try one thing a little harder and try one thing a little harder and one thing a little harder until you find yourself going, well, that was crazy, but oh my God, it worked out. It doesn't work out every time. I wish it would. But when it works out, you feel so rewarded. You know you're sleeping well at night because your client got the best outcome they possibly could have had. So the things that surprise me are the amount of people that walk into my office without hope, without belief that there's anything left to do, and they leave knowing that it's a thin line and there's little hope, but there's still hope. And you just have to hold on to that and make some magic happen. And boy, oh boy, for every time somebody has said no to me in 15 years, all I've done is find a creative way to get to yes.
I like it.
That's awesome.
I like it.
Thanks.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
I love that. A creative way to get to that.
All right, on that note, we have our New Jersey themed trivia game. So we're going to see how much George knows about the Garden State. And we're going to hope that Randy can catch up because Randy is really far behind in this game. I'm not going to sugarcoat it at all. You know,
oh, that's rough.
Why does
that's
the bus
rough.
have to run over me every time we
I'm
play?
just saying, Randy, you need some wins.
Well, I tell you what, Randy,
Let's
we're
tell
going to
George
be
what he
okay
needs.
with this. I don't know. This Jersey stuff sounds weird, but okay.
George, hopefully we can turn this around the way that you
I got
do
you.
cases for folks.
Randy, sorry, George, I will pause the show if you need, but if you have a piece of paper, maybe 3 pieces of paper and a Sharpie marker
A
or
Sharpie
something.
marker.
Yeah, that works. So anything that would appear if you were to hold it up to the screen. You want it to be thick enough that it'll show. Yeah,
There's an inappropriate joke in there.
Prepared.
I do want it to be enough so it shows, Vinny. Thank you.
There we go. Casey, why don't you tell
Let me find my law degree so I can prove I'm really an
after
attorney.
hours. Yes, after hours show.
Casey, what are we playing for today?
Oh, we are playing for, we're always playing for fabulous prize, a $10 Wawa gift card.
Hey, that's at least a sandwich, maybe even like a hash
That's
brown
a
and a
shorty,
drink,
man.
You know, like
Hoagie Fest.
Yeah.
$10.
Hoagie Fest.
All yours.
Didn't Hoagie
All
Fest
yours.
end? I mean, I don't want to
up.
say that prematurely if it didn't, but I'm almost
But it
certain
comes
Hoagie
around.
Fest is over, right?
I'll wait.
There you go.
comes
Just,
around.
I'm
Save
sure
it.
it wouldn't
You
expire,
can save
so
them
hold
up.
on to it. Yeah.
Get a couple, save them up. Take the family out.
All right, so the way this is going to work, I'm going to throw out a question. Write down your answer. After a few seconds, we'll give everybody a few seconds to kind of lock in what they've got. You hold it up. We'll announce the answers, that you give, as well as the right answer, for the sake of the people driving around in their car that can't hear you holding up, the answer. And we'll move on to the next one. So my first question. All right. This is going to be sort of movie themed, but yeah. All right. Camp Nobi Bosco, the North Bergen Boy Scout camp in Hardwick Township, New Jersey, is better known in the movies as what? This is a famous filming location. Honestly, if you don't know the name of the fictional camp, I guess I'll take the movie, but I would prefer the camp. So, Camp Nobi Bosco. All right, anybody got anything locked in?
What
Locked.
the heck, man?
I got it.
Guessing,
I'm
but
sure
locked.
I'm wrong.
All right.
I'm guessing too.
Let's hold them up. Let's see what people
answer.
got. Oh, you both got it correct with Camp Crystal Lake.
Yes.
Yes.
Right on, Georgie.
I took a tour a couple years ago. I think it was like late COVID when we were starting to get back out there in the world. For the longest time, they had rented out that camp in like the late 70s, early 80s for that movie. And then when they found out what they rented it out for, like what was filmed there, they were so disgusted. So they haven't let anybody near that place in forever. I mean, it's a Boy Scout camp. You don't want adults just randomly walking around. But recently they opened it up. What's up?
No way.
I would totally stay there. That's a Halloween. That's a Halloween stay.
No way.
They recently, okay, so when I went, you were just allowed to walk around. You got a tour of all the different locations that they filmed. Now they'll actually let you stay in a cabin, and I wish I did that.
Oh,
but,
down.
Yeah.
I'm down.
Randy, sorry.
You're probably
Randy's
right
rolling his eyes.
not.
Not a big horror fan, I guess. Yeah, no.
Not a big get right answers fan.
Oh, I guess.
He'll be safe if you're not making out.
That's
how
true.
I always get down and can't.
All right. Our next one. Before they betrayed us and became the Brooklyn Nets, we had a basketball team in New Jersey by the name of, wait for it, the New Jersey Nets, who, with 10,444 points, was their all-time top scorer. I'll give you a hint. This player is active today and plays for the Milwaukee Bucks.
Oh, no.
Randy question for sure.
Oh, no.
I wish I had jingle music.
Because he said active. Now I'm dead.
Yeah.
I was going with Jason Kidd,
I was
too.
going with Jason Kidd.
Just for the record. I thought it was...
Is Larry Bird still playing?
Larry Bird, I don't believe, ever played for the Nets. He was with the Boston Celtics. Unless I'm wrong, and there was like one season in the beginning there.
Oh, my God. I'm so bad.
All right, what do we got? Randy Macho Man Savage is wrong, but is still an awesome answer. Jack Tall. No. Randy, anything? No! Brooke Lopez. Brooke Lopez is the New Jersey Nets' all-time top scorer.
Wow.
10,444 points. All right, one last.
Who knew?
He's the leading scorer for the Nets?
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Wow.
All right. Here we go. Last question. At 128 miles per hour, this is the fastest roller coaster in North America with the tallest roller coaster drop in the world. And your hint is that it's in Six Flags Great Adventure in Jackson, New Jersey. So really all you have to do is be like, what's the craziest freaking roller coaster?
I can't remember the name.
Six Flags Great Adventure.
The big one goes all the way up and then down.
And all the way up and then down. Tallest roller coaster drop in the world. Almost the fastest in the world, but there's something out in Saudi Arabia that's crazy.
The one in Sandusky? Wow.
Yes. I don't know what the one in Sandusky is, but I looked it up as the tallest in the world.
I'm really impressed
so
because
I'll tell you, I was in Florida recently. I was at Disney World. I have been on this roller coaster that I'm not mentioning, the one that is the answer to this question. But that was like 10 years ago. I was recently in Florida and I went on the Velocicoaster in Universal Studios, and that goes like 0 to 70, and I don't even know how fast.
You were on Hulk, right? Did you go on Incredible Hulk? Because I mean, what's amazing about Hulk is that you're looking up and you're on a launcher and you're like, how is this going to do that loop at the top of the hill? And before your brain can process it, too late. You've already launched. And that sucker blows you right out. I always thought that was one of the fastest. What an amazing coaster.
I mean, it's not even close. Like when when I was on Velocicoaster, I thought that was crazy. And that was 70 miles an hour. This one that, is the answer to this question that I'm not naming yet, goes 125 miles an hour. I was like, how did I not die on that thing?
I can't remember.
So hold them up. What do we got?
It's wrong. I can't remember the name. I know what it looks like, but I forgot the name.
It is not Nitro. It is not Scream Machine. But George with the correct answer, King Dakar.
King Dakar.
I thought about
It's the tip of my tongue.
I have the photo of me on that ride, and my skin is rippling across my face. The only other time that happened to me was when I did my skydive. Yep. That was insane.
I went skydiving quite literally.
Another one
at that airport across the street from my office. The day after I took the bar exam, I said, well, that was the scariest thing I've ever done in my life. I might as well do the second scariest. And I jumped out of a plane at the Allaire airport, and legitimately, I was a big guy. Vinny, you understand this, right? Big guys, we're not supposed to jump out of planes. The teddy bear they put on my back, he was as big as me. I'm pretty sure we made it to the ground in about 8.5 seconds, but it was the most thrilling, terrifying 8.5 seconds of my life.
So for me, the free fall, it was going so fast I couldn't even think. There's no time to be scared. Then when you slow down, when the chute goes up and all I could think about is how much it hurt. Because you've got this, your body wants to just hit the ground as fast as it can. And this thing is pulling you up. And the place that it's pulling you up in is your crotch. And so for 10 minutes, this thing is just pulling up on there as hard as it can. And I'm like, when can this end? When can this end? When can this end? The only moment that's actually scary is when you're sitting on the edge of the plane and it's time to jump. That's it. And that goes so quick,
Amazing stuff.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, I've never done that.
So George won for the day. You get our Wawa gift card because it was George 2, Casey 1. Randy, come on, man, 0.
It's okay, Randy.
We'll get that eventually.
I'll buy you a hoagie.
Yeah, I know. Thank you, sir.
George, if somebody's in some trouble, tell us how they can get a hold of you.
You're in trouble, brother. You just called Veitengruber Law. Well, listen, if you guys, the one rule has always been, it is always a free consultation for my clients and potential clients. It takes an ounce of bravery to call an attorney and admit where you're vulnerable and scared and confused. So I'd never want to charge for that because it's a barrier for entry. So it's a free consultation. Veitengruberlaw.com is the website. I am on Facebook and the Instagram and the TikTok and the LinkedIn. But we do phone consultations. We do Zoom consultations. We do knee to knee, this old traditional thing where we actually sit in the same room as people. We still do that quite a lot. And I always leave the people who come to see me with a game plan, whether they want to hire me to do the game plan or they want to try it on their own. They always walk out of the office with the value of more answers than the questions that they walked in with. And I love doing it. That's the most important part, is that whatever you do for a living, I hope you love doing it. And I hope there's something that feeds your soul doing it every day. And for me, doing law this way, helping these people, has been a really fun career.
And George, you guys have 2 offices, correct?
I have 3. I don't know. By the end of this, we might have 4. Who knows?
Put some respect on that.
So the mothership is in Wall Township. I have a team of 10 that work out of this office, again, practicing in the areas of bankruptcy, real estate, foreclosure defense, and wills and trusts. I have satellite offices in Metuchen because I learned that just being across the Driscoll Bridge, quote unquote, makes me a northerner. And I have an office in Bordentown, which people think is so far south, although it's on the same exact plane as the office in Wall. It's just one is on the west, one's on the east. I meet clients where they need me to be. And having offices in multiple locations became removing the barrier to, oh, my attorney is so far. So with pleasure, I've now created 3 locations for the convenience of my clients being able to see me where they feel most comfortable seeing me.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
Excellent. All right. Well, a big thank you to NJM Insurance Group for sponsoring this show. Big thank you to Casey and Randy for helping me out here hosting this one. And a big thank you to George Veitengruber for coming in and talking to us today.
He's such
it was great
a
to
good
meet
guy.
you.
My God. I can't wait to talk about law.
Right. All right. Well, thank you. And until next time.
Thanks, guys. A pleasure.